Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Professional Services Survey Results. Industry experts share how to manage people, processes, and profits. Today's event is sponsored by Configero, a certified Salesforce Gold Cloud Alliance partner and a provider of expert CRM and cloud consulting services and solutions. Configero works with leading professional services firms on service excellence and project management strategies and has deep domain experience and proven success in transforming professional services organizations to be more efficient, collaborative, and profitable. My name is Kimya Coker. I am the director at Configero, and I'm joined today by Richard Greenaway, who is a 15-year professional services veteran and executive, and Richard is going to be sharing his experience and best practices for other organizations. Today's webinar will last about 30 minutes with some additional time at the end for Q&A. So we invite you to submit your questions throughout the session, either through the Q&A panel to the right of your screen, or you can reach us on Twitter by using the Configero hashtag or @mentionconfigero. Today's webinar is also going to be recorded, so everyone who has registered for the event will receive a link to download the presentation and share with your colleagues. So today, what we wanted to first share with you is the results of a recent survey that we conducted of over 100 professional services organizations. Now, this survey focused on a number of different things, including how these organizations currently manage their projects and their engagements, which areas of service delivery they're managing, which metrics are most important to their executives as they measure success, and then also what areas they'll be focusing their attention on within the next year. The survey respondents who participated in this particular survey represented a broad section of industries, including high-tech, healthcare, construction, engineering, law firms, consulting companies, and so on. And so what you'll see here at the very top is we were very surprised to find out that about 77% of all respondents are actually still managing their project in spreadsheets, so doing a lot of manual work, building their projects, and having resources manage time and things like that. So it seems to be the preferred tool amongst today's professional services organizations. But many respondents also told us that they are using spreadsheets in conjunction with other tools that are actually specifically designed for project management. So about 41% mentioned using a desktop tool like a Microsoft project. 28% of organizations mentioned that they were using something that was built specifically custom for their company, so something maybe internally created. And then 25% are actually using a cloud or a web-based tool, which is going to allow them to be more collaborative and less, kind of stuck within the desktop or within offline methods. What we also found out is, as we looked at these different tools that companies are using, we wanted to find out what areas they were using these tools to manage. What we found is that most of these, the top choices, were time and expenses. So that included categories such as project planning, delivery timelines, so things like tasks and milestones and phases, resource management, and then time and expense tracking. So a lot of focus on how those resources, those employees, are using their time. But what we also found out is that only 30% of companies were using these tools to manage sales, profits, and revenue forecasting. And so those are areas in sales including things like pipeline and opportunity tracking. And only about 20% said that they were able to do any type of revenue forecasting or profitability analysis within these tools. Excuse me. The other thing we wanted to find out is what executives and leadership, what types of metrics they were using to measure the success of service delivery. And of course, as you can see here, 31% was the number one choice was profitability. And number two was actually tied for customer satisfaction and delivery performance. So certainly no surprise there that services organizations are very concerned with making sure, through the use of time and expenses and how resources are managing their time, if they are delivering profitable projects that are, under budget. When we asked respondents to tell us how they were going to be focusing their time over the next 6 to 12 months, the number one answer there was customer retention and growth. So a lot of companies really focus on acquiring new customers and retaining and growing those existing clients. We also had process efficiency and productivity, which again speaks to making sure that resources are being fully utilized and are managing their time in the right areas. Client acquisition, of course, repeatable best practices. So understanding how they can take successes within past projects and incorporate what they've learned, those lessons learned, into being able to replicate those successes. Of course, resource training, staffing, and recruiting were big on the list. Internal collaboration, which is one of the things Configero hears from our clients, in that they have a lot of difficulty connecting teams and getting teams to talk to each other, and that's made more difficult by offline tools. Like they're using something like a spreadsheet or a desktop tool that's going to be more and more difficult, particularly when you have companies that have dispersed resources. They are represented in different regions and perhaps even different countries around the globe. And reducing delivery costs, which is a big one. Just trying to understand how they can more efficiently get resources to deliver projects. So those were the results, and of course we want to talk about, what does that data mean? And one of the things that we hear quite a bit is that when you look at the way the delivery team is managed, they're very much managed in a silo. And so they are, disconnected from sales and from finance, which if you think of sales as kind of on the front end of the service delivery life cycle, they actually sell the services, and then you've got finance, who's responsible for invoicing and billing and making sure that the revenue gets recognized. So with delivery resources, they're using a lot of PM tools that are very specific just to their teams, while sales is using something, maybe finance is using QuickBooks, and so it's all very, very siloed. Another thing we looked at is the fact that a lot of the current tools that are being used aren't being used for forward-looking things like resource and revenue forecasting. And so we understand from a lot of our customers that being able to look forward and do proactive planning for understanding when you need to hire staff, what types of skill sets are going to be needed for particular types of projects, and making sure that you plan for that ahead of time. And then also being able to forecast revenue to understand where you are from a budget perspective and what you can expect in terms of profits. And then, of course, a very clear finding was all these organizations are really focused on, two key things. One being the external, how do we, acquire clients, how do we satisfy and delight our clients, and how do we grow those relationships? And then, of course, the second being more internal is how do we make our employees and our resources more productive and more efficient, and make sure that those resources do have the right skills and the expertise and are placed on the right projects that are aligned with that. So what we kind of took away from this survey is that, professional services leaders and teams really need a better way to look at the entire life cycle, because, when you think about clients, you think about resources, you think about profitability, those are all touched by sales, delivery, and finance. It's not just within that delivery silo where these areas and these metrics get impacted. We also wanted to share with you the findings of a survey report which is called the State of the PMO. This is a research report that was done by PM Solutions Research, and what they found when they asked over 500 PMOs worldwide is that there were 3 top areas that they perceived as challenges and that they really wanted to focus on over the next year. This very much mirrors what we were able to find in our survey. They wanted to improve resource planning and forecasting, wanted to enhance those core processes that the resources use to be able to deliver services, and they also wanted to get better reporting, analytics, and dashboards, which of course is going to impact the way they look back to determine how they should move forward. So really interesting things being revealed out of those two surveys. And now I want to turn it over to Richard Greenaway. Richard is actually the Vice President of Professional Services for Routematch Software, and his role encompasses implementation and software training. He draws on 15 years experience in the software industry and with government entities to construct and execute very complex project plans. Richard has a record of capturing, managing, and delivering multi-million-dollar projects on time and under budget. And prior to Routematch, his previous roles encompassed everything from requirements gathering, budget planning, software selection and implementation, and project management. So Richard has a very broad understanding of how all of these pieces fit together to be able to ensure professional services delivery success. And Richard is going to talk a little bit about how his company, Routematch, has been able to leverage some really innovative tools and approaches to be able to address the challenges that we just spoke about. Now, before Richard gets started, I will point out that Routematch is a software provider, and so they do a lot of work on implementation, deployment, customizing solutions for their customer base. But the things that he's going to really focus on today are relevant for any industry who is relying on resources to deliver projects and who's concerned with looking at how to make those processes better so that they can, drive more profit and have more satisfied customers. So with that, I will turn it over to Richard Greenaway.
Thanks very much, Kimya. Hello, everyone. So let me just give you a bit more background about who we are, Roundmatch. So Roundmatch has been in existence since 1999. We're based here in Atlanta and have various other locations across the U.S. and an office in Australia as well. We focus on passenger transportation technology. So we bring technology to various private organizations and public organizations to help them facilitate more efficient operations and provide executives and management with various business intelligence information. We have over 550 clients across the US and in Australia. And within our organization, we have around 40 professional services staff whose day-to-day job is focused on implementation. And that's of a total company size of just over 150 people. So we're extremely client-focused on delivering our solution set, which involves software and hardware to our customers. Since our inception, we've understood that we will only be as successful as the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. So for over 8 years, we've been using the Salesforce platform. Two primary focuses initially on sales automation and analytics. Providing our sales team with a pipeline visibility, being able to link that to marketing, etc. And then also our customer support organization using that functionality to enter cases when we call in. We have about 30 people in our customer support team who provide a help desk for all our customers 24/7. So those are the two main focuses that we initially had. We also use Salesforce as a tool for other things such as libraries and ideas as well. But we've been invested in Salesforce for a number of years, and from a PSO perspective, when I joined the company 3 years ago, we were using it very lightly to do just some very high-level project tracking. So from a perspective of taking our professional services team from where we were to where we want to be, we are running around 150 to 170 projects at any one time. Various different levels of complexity and revenue generation. They range from $50,000 projects, small projects, to multi-million-dollar projects. So we have a very wide range of projects, and we are a very high-velocity professional services organization. We have a pretty streamlined implementation methodology that's aimed at results for our customers. And it has a very simple kind of phases of initiation, design, build, education, and then deployment, and system acceptance. So the ability to manage that across 150 active projects, various different revenue streams, and most of the team actually out in the field proved to be a pretty difficult kind of nut to crack from a perspective of how do we bring ourselves into this century and how do we make it a world-class professional services team. So very similar to the results that Kimya was talking about earlier on, we ran the business of spreadsheets. So there were different types of spreadsheets, some client-facing, some internal-facing, held on a server that we could share, etc., but really limited from a perspective of the amount of time that we had to spend doing them. Then how do you take 140 active projects, look across 140 spreadsheets, and help kind of start looking at forecasting? So we're very sensitive to our pipeline and how quickly we can get projects going, resourcing them correctly, and that's very difficult when you've got 150 disparate spreadsheets and you're trying to figure out when things finish, etc. Also, with the heavy field activity, our people in the field trying to update spreadsheets, etc., proves a challenge as well. So difficult to resource, difficult to forecast, and difficult for our team to actually work with as well. So we were looking very similar to the kind of results you saw earlier on, but rather than looking at 2014, in 2012 we looked ahead and wanted to invest in a tool that would allow us to move forward and make ourselves more efficient. So we wanted to be able to continue to increase customer satisfaction with whatever this tool was going to be, improve our ability to manage via data that was easily accessible. We wanted everything to be very scalable for us, and we really wanted the team to be vested in the tool. So the team was frustrated with the kind of spreadsheet process, and they wanted a tool that they could use very easily in the field, could easily make sure that the project management office, if I was a project manager managing 7 projects in my portfolio, that I could look across all 7 and understand what the tasks were, if any were slipping behind, etc., and not have to go to 7 different spreadsheets. We're also looking for a solution that aligned ourselves with our Salesforce investment. So our sales team live in Salesforce, our customer support team live in Salesforce. We wanted the professional services team to live in Salesforce as well from a tool aspect, and thus we kind of built a requirements matrices of what we were looking for. And although not literally on that, we were also looking for a partner. So that led us to Configero, although not necessarily led us to Configero. We've done some initial work with Configero as well, but the needs of what we were looking for from our requirements were met very well with the Configero Pulse tool. So we were looking for flexibility. We were looking for something that was scalable. We wanted mobility with a team of 40 people out in the field. It had to be easy to use and easy to adopt, and we definitely wanted that partner aspect as well. So all of those boxes were ticked, and earlier this year we moved forward with the implementation of Pulse into our professional services organization. So here you show kind of one of my initial kind of favorite things of what Pulse gives us. So I'm sure a lot of you may be similar to where we were a year ago, where struggling with multiple spreadsheets, some projects, because of their complexity, meant that you had to create Microsoft project plans as well. I've used Microsoft projects for many, many years, and it has its challenges. The Configero version of project, the Gantt chart view, we found a lot more intuitive and allows us to create templates that we can then very simply, and by simply I mean it takes 2 clicks of a button, copy to create brand new projects in a very, very easy methodology and a very quick methodology. Then the project manager can tailor to the exact need, and by just clicking or dragging one of these particular tasks, the waterfall effect is instantaneously. And actually, if you're showing that to a client, when a client says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't stick to this timeline, they can almost instantly on a webinar see the impact that their decision has on their project lifetime. So very easy tool, and we're saving nearly an hour a project just on the ability to use this tool and use the template functionality that Pulse has. Also, from a management perspective, I now have a tool where I can look across my estate of 150 active projects and see how my team is being utilized, which allows multiple things. One, I can look at kind of pinch points, see if I've got any bottlenecks from resources, maybe from a technical perspective or my education team. But also I can start looking out and beginning to forecast a lot better. And I can provide my sales team with a lot more accurate data from a perspective of when I can kick projects off. So what you see in front of you is literally what we call the heat map, which is basically by resource what tasks they have associated to them. So the previous slide that you saw with the Gantt chart is task-based, rolled up to phases. If you extrapolate that across the 160 projects, all those tasks are assigned to somebody. That allows you to look at each individual and see what their utilization is. It also allows you to do some great nifty things from a perspective of I can break this up so I can see what my education team heat is. I can look at what my technical team's utilization is. So we can cut this data now numerous ways. It helps with forecasting for sales. We're also beginning to look at it from a perspective of when we think we should recruit people as well, looking into this data and seeing how that can happen. So excellent management tool to give you a bird's eye view of resource utilization, but across teams as well. We've also got to cut it because I have an office in Denver, so I can compare Denver to Atlanta, and we've started a nice little challenge between the two offices to build up some competition and some friendly rivalry as well. Previously, there's no way I could have done this via spreadsheets or a combination of project plans, whatever it might be. Here I have all of this data, one repository in one container, and it sits within Salesforce where we all live as well. The mobility aspect was also key to us. As I said, most of my team are out in the field at any given day out at the client site. So everyone with their smartphones and tablets can easily access Salesforce, go to Pulse, and kind of update things from a tablet perspective or their laptops. But then on the mobile phone, they can quite easily at the beginning of the day see tasks. We're beginning to move away from our legacy time entry system and put our time entry into Pulse as well. So at the end of the day, someone in the field can very quickly go in, update their tasks, update their time, they're done. So trying to remove what a lot of people in services kind of view as administration, but it's the administration that's actually key to how you run the business, how you view the data, and whether you trust the data. So now we have one place where we do this, and we're not asking our team to go to multiple applications. It's all in one container. We're trusting the data a lot more to allow us to plan the business and forecast the business. Also, from a reporting perspective, we're not only being able to look at resourcing, as I said before, but also obviously revenue. So a lot of Routematch business is actually fixed price. So some of the tasks you saw in the Gantt chart would lead to a phase completing, which would kick into an invoice milestone. So as we have the plans outlined, as project managers move things, because life happens, it's just a plan. It might be client related, it might be product related, it might be whatever related. We can see what those impacts have to our financial forecasts. So again, if you can imagine 150 projects, things move for each of those projects on a weekly basis. The project manager's just moving those Gantt lines and tasks around, and then I just run a single report, and by project and by region, by project type as well, I can see what my revenue forecast movement is. Very key to us with how closely linked I am with our finance team. We meet on a weekly basis, and rather than previously spending an hour and a half trying to make sense of multiple spreadsheets, now we're staring at 2 or 3 reports. We're trusting the data, and we're allowed to making better business decisions and better forecasting. So hopefully that's a good kind of concept of how we use the tool and why we use the tool. As we move forward as well, we have what we call our customer web portal, My Roundmatch, which allows our clients to get a lot of useful information and links in with our support desk. What we're moving forward with and working with Configero is to provide some of that information I just showed that's project related. So not only the schedule, we also track all of the project actions on the Impulse, risks and issues in Pulse, and we're going to expose that information to our clients. So we're going to get our clients using our portal immediately as we're engaged, so they can access training information, but also during any active project, they can log on and self-serve themselves, see what happens on schedules, where the issues are and actions are, because they'll own some of those as well. So getting away from the world of emailing spreadsheets and plans and having everything accessible, self-serve for our client base.
Sure, and Richie, I'll talk through the next one. One of the things that we focused on in the beginning is the fact that there are very siloed operations. So, you know, the things that happen with sales, which is really important because sales is setting the expectation with the client when they sell a service, isn't necessarily always getting clearly communicated in a timely fashion to the delivery team, who's responsible for, you know, making the promise of delivering those expectations and making the customer happy. So one of the things that Pulse has just recently added is what's called an opportunity wizard. And what it allows customers to do is, because sales and delivery are connected within the Salesforce Cloud platform, when a salesperson goes in to begin to build a proposal, they can actually choose certain product packages and categories, which is going to allow them to generate these proposals very quickly, just based on anything that might be a common you know, software package. So for instance, for a company like Routematch, they may have a specific mobile transit solution that has any number of different phases and tasks that are associated with that. And so as the salesperson is choosing what type of package it is, the system is automatically dropping in some predefined information based on what the company's you know, kind of custom packages look like. After that is put in, they can accurately and quickly look forward and use that information for the sales pipeline tracking. So understanding, based on the proposals that have been built into Salesforce and those opportunities, how do we look forward and determine what our probability is for revenue? And here you can see some opportunity detail. All of this has been generated simply by the salesperson going in and choosing a couple of different categories specific to the company. And what that actually generates is a statement of work, you know, that final deliverable that has to get signed off on for the project to be approved and to close out that sale and move forward. So that's all happening within the same system. And the nice thing about it is, with Salesforce, for those of you on the call today who have Salesforce, the chatter feature, which is kind of almost like a Facebook or a Twitter feed from a CRM perspective, can be used to share all of these documents so that the services team is aware at every step of the way throughout this proposal process and the closing process what's coming soon and what's next on the roadmap. And so, Richie, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about some of the business impact.
Thanks, Kimmy. So as I said, we piloted this in April and kind of full force using the product for the last kind of 4 to 5 months. So from a perspective of kind of immediate ROI, one of the key things is kind of the time spent previously looking across those multiple spreadsheets, multiple project plans, and looking at some information in Salesforce, having that all consolidated, obviously saving huge amounts of time for myself and other members of our management team on a weekly basis. So we have one tool now that all the team uses. I think that's increased morale, although not a kind of measurable number that I can give on that, but I feel that my team's morale has increased on the back of implementing Pulse. It allows me to kind of use that time to look at maybe some key operational metrics that I've always wanted to look at but knew I could probably never spend the time on, and also probably very importantly allow me to spend more time with my customers, making sure that at the granularity level I can have conversations with them and spend time with them, which previously I was using for kind of data gathering. We're having less instances of things falling through the cracks. I'm sure a lot of people who are in that spreadsheet world or whatever tool that they're using that's spread out and is not in a single container, things by just nature of the beast fall through the cracks. Having everything in one container and at a very granular level from a service perspective. So some of our projects will have kind of 400, 500 tasks associated with them. They're complex, multi-million-dollar hardware software implementations. So having everything in a single place, everything has an owner, it's very easy to see when things are getting behind schedule for the project managers and all the way up to me. So allows us to be more of a proactive service team than a reactive service team. And all of that kind of allows us now to package this as a competitive advantage. So in our particular marketplace, with services being a key when a client is selecting, we see this as something that differentiates us. So what we've kind of discussed today, we've packaged in a couple of pages and we've inserting into all of our RFP responses. So to us, it's a major selling point now that our services organization has this tool and can now and will be able to expose some of the benefits even to our customers so they can see some of the great tools that you have within the product.
Excellent. And is there anything else you would like to add, Richard?
I mean, just generally, having been in the professional services world for 15 more years now, I've worked in multiple organizations where we've wanted this. So I think from a perspective of what we've invested from a company perspective, everyone understands that we've invested in a tool that's got a competitive advantage for us, makes us more efficient, has a positive impact on our people. So I would say that from a professional services perspective, we've taken a giant step this year by having Pulse as a tool that we've been able to use, and it's had impacts that we didn't foresee right at the beginning of the project. And I would kind of say the morale is probably one of the big ones.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. And you know, it's interesting. We hear a lot of the same, a lot of the same business impact areas that you focused on. You know, being able to have teams be more efficient and collaborative, and being able to make that connection between delivery and finance. You know, we're hearing that echoed across our professional services customers as well. And so when we think back to the survey results and the fact that a lot of companies are still stuck in spreadsheets, you know, this seems to be kind of a no-brainer for in terms of these companies, you know, really beginning to evolve their operations and how they ensure successful projects for their customers. So right now, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. As we said earlier, you can submit your questions in the chat box under the GoToMeeting floating panel to the right of your screen. You can also send them via Twitter using the hashtag Configero or @mentionconfigero. And if we don't get to your questions today, because I do see several questions coming in, you can always send them to apps@configero.com, and we will make sure that you get a response to your question very quickly. So with the first question I'm going to go into, this is a question for Richard. Susan asks, how long did it take you guys to get up and running?
Hi Susan. So we installed the product in April and worked with some of the Configero services folks and had Pulse being utilized by 2 project managers a week later. I would say there was then 2 weeks of refinement. So we had projects up and running after a week. They were fully up and running, and I was being able to just gain benefits within 3 weeks. We then kind of slowly rolled it out across our project managers in kind of batches. And so within 8 weeks, we had everyone up and rolling on it. And, you know, when you're talking of a team of 40 people, when we got to that mass, we had 2 weeks of further refinement and questions. And, again, one of the nice things with the Configero team is very much a partnership. We had, you know, nightly meetings to start with to see how we're going, then they've moved to weekly. So that's roughly what it took from us. And we're talking about a portfolio of migrating 150 projects into the system, getting everyone trained, refining some of the configuration. So that was the approach we took, more of a crawl, walk, run approach.
Great, great. Thanks, Richard. And got another question here from Nick, who wants to know how hard was it to convince your team to move away from spreadsheets?
We have a team meeting. I showed them the mobile app. There was rapturous cheering. It was a done deal. Yeah, I mean, none of them enjoyed, you know, all of our project managers have multiple projects, so they had multiple spreadsheets. And this was something they were involved in the requirements. So my approach is always from a leadership perspective, involve the team in when you're making these kind of decisions. So even before we started discussing with Configero months before, we'd had meetings around how we wanted a PSA tool and why we wanted it. So the team was kind of already bought in. One or two of my key kind of people were involved in the kind of more details of the kind of the RFP process per se. So by the time we actually got to the stage where we said it was going to be Pulse, they were already licking their chops.
Got it. Great, great. And I've got a question here from Morris, and the question looks like, okay, Morris wants to know, do you have to already be on Salesforce to use? And that is a great question, Morris. The Project Pulse application was actually designed to be completely flexible and open, and so it is available even if you're using another CRM tool or if you're interested on understanding how you would use it, you know, in a completely standalone fashion. It's certainly something that Pulse can do, and the nice thing about it is, with it being so flexible and customizable, it can really be designed to your unique specifications, the things that are important to you, how your processes work, how you want your people to be managed and to be using the tool. So great question there. And it looks like Daniel wants to know, Richard, did you evaluate other tools besides Project Pulse?
Yeah, absolutely. So Daniel, we kind of did a high-level RFP process and narrowed it down to 3 vendors and had meetings with those vendors. And for us, the partnership aspect is part of our business. We have a family culture here at Roundmatch, and the tool set of how they met our requirements and the duplication of viewing a client more as a partner and part of the family meant that that's how we kind of met with and chose Pulse. But we did look at other PSA tools within the Salesforce environment.
Great, great. And then another question here, which is, it looks like, so Richard, you mentioned that your sales reps use Salesforce, but the delivery resources were not previously using that. How were you guys doing metrics? So it looks like here, Tim is saying they use a homegrown tool, and they've got to have an administrator go in and take data from the sales team and then from the delivery team to bring it all together and manually do analytics. How were you guys doing that before, and has that changed with the implementation of Pulse?
We were doing it before badly. We were kind of using Salesforce to just track I would call the header information of the project, so the scope of it, and kind of just producing a weekly status update. So we used some of that status update information, and then we had a spreadsheet called the implementation work plan that had key data. So it meant going into everything individually and trying to pull data out. We just don't have the administrative overhead to do that at a level that we could pull analytics on a very regular basis. So we used to focus mainly on things like the unhappy clients and put together health plans and things like that. And then monthly or bi-weekly, we would look at a certain type of analytics or a KPI and do the administration to get that one piece of data out. But the one thing we always agreed upon was we were never 100% sure about the data because we understood the difficulties that the team were having updating all of those spreadsheets, plans, etc. So again, consolidating it into a single container removes that element instantaneously. Get everyone to use it and trust it and want it, and you've kind of solved that problem of the administration of having to do everything. So now I go in and pull my utilization report, that's it. I just press the button.
That's great. Great. Thank you, Richard. And I also have a question here from, I believe it's Gada, and she asked, what features does Project Pulse have that make it different from Microsoft Project? And Gada, that is a great question. And the answer is quite a few features differentiate a cloud application that's native to Salesforce like Project Pulse with Microsoft Project. Obviously, Microsoft Project is a desktop application, so you don't get the benefit of that collaborative, very dynamic exchange of data and updates and ideas. Microsoft Project also is not integrated with Salesforce, whereas a product like Pulse is going to be fully integrated with Salesforce. It's 100% native, meaning everything that gets entered in by the team, every update, every piece of content that gets shared is right there in Salesforce for everyone who has access to be able to view and to collaborate on and to share knowledge. So that's a big plus. With Microsoft Project, you obviously also don't get that sales integration. So if you've got a sales team that is working from a CRM system or is working out of Salesforce, Microsoft Project, everything that happens in there is pretty much just happening in that one silo, and it's not getting connected in with all the other things that are going on that impact your service lifecycle. The mobile access is also a great feature. So being able to provide something to resources that are out in the field, that are traveling and on the road, so that they can see the tasks that are open. If they've got anything that's overdue or critical, they can log their time and log their expenses in a much more timely fashion than having to get to an office or get to a laptop and trying to enter in that information. And then also another thing is the flexibility. So, you know, with a cloud application like Pulse, you are basically able to build your own project management cloud application, you know, inside of Pulse. So everything, you know, from your unique methodology to the way that your teams work, to the way that you want people to be able to see and access information is fully customizable to your specific needs and the goals of your company. And so those are just a few areas, but certainly we do see a lot of customers come in from Microsoft Project. You know, it's a step up from Excel. They've been using it for many years, but they understand that it is limiting them from being able to do a lot of the things that they want to do, like revenue forecasting, resource utilization. They just don't get those powerful features with the Microsoft Project. And I see here we have several other questions coming in. One of the questions is for Richard again. And Richard, this is Tim. He wants to know, are there any lessons learned or any considerations that you would offer to a company who's looking to move off of spreadsheets or off of a homegrown tool and is looking to switch to a cloud application like this one?
Yeah, I would start with make sure you know where you want to go. So what's the end goal? Our end goal was having a single container in the cloud that would link to the rest of our business. The project managers and the rest of the services team were going to buy into, and thus we would all reap the benefits. So at the high level elevator pitch, that was really what we were aiming for. So I think you have to have that. As you move down that path, I think you really want to make sure you detail all your requirements, give them a priority, so you know not everyone can do anything, no matter what any of the vendors say, and that includes us as well when we go on our pitch. They can't do everything. So some things you're not going to get, but what are your top things? And then make sure as you're building that list, you're getting buy-in from the services troops. I mean, they're the end recipients of this, and they're going to live in this tool. Kimia was making some great points earlier on, but one of the key things to us that differentiates Pulse from Microsoft Project is, it's difficult to track issues, actions, etc. in Microsoft Project. All of those things happen on a daily basis in the world of projects, and we have one place where we track everything. I would definitely kind of put together a project plan for your PSA tool and make sure you have your requirements, you get buy-in, and you know where you want to end up. What are your critical success factors?
That's great. That's great. And I know we are actually out of time now. It's a little bit past 1:45 Eastern. I do have several questions that have come in, since that last one. But what we're going to do is reach out to any of you whose questions we didn't get to today. We sincerely apologize, but really appreciate your participation on the session today. And we will follow up with you directly via email to make sure that we get all of your burning questions answered. I want to make sure everyone knows what a couple of good next steps are. So after today's webinar, obviously we will make sure that everyone gets a copy of the replay of today's session. We do invite you to share it with your team and colleagues, and they can view this in its entirety at their leisure. We'll also be sending out a link to the infographic, which is a summary of all of the survey results that you heard at the beginning of the webinar. We invite you all to sign up for a 20-minute demo of Project Pulse, and you'll be able to see a cloud expert on our team will walk you through how other companies, in addition to Routematch, are using Project Pulse, how they're customizing it for their own businesses, and some different, really cool buttons and different custom features that they've asked us to build that are really helpful to how they do business. And then you can always see, in-depth videos. There is a 3-minute demo overview of Project Pulse out on the Configero website at www.configero.com. And if you want to just visit the Salesforce App Exchange and look at the page there, there's several pieces of content there. And you can also see some user reviews from other customers. I want to thank Richard again so much for his participation and for sharing his expertise with you all today. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this webinar. And we look forward to following up with you and answering any additional questions you might have about Pulse or about professional services strategies in general. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend.